Today we're breaking down Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, directed by Gore Verbinski and written by Matthew Robinson. The film stars Sam Rockwell, Juno Temple, and Haley Lou Richardson, with a score by Geoff Zanelli. This is an R-rated film, and this video will include full spoilers, including discussions of the plot, themes, and ending. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and want to go in blind, now's the time to stop watching. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is A Constantly Racing Mind, where we break down sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, prop culture, and all things geek. Every frame tells a story, and we focus on why these stories work or don't. So if that's your thing, hit the subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss future deep dives. Imagine you're sitting at Norm's Diner in West Hollywood, just trying to enjoy a coffee, when a man who looks like he's crawled out of a landfill bursts into the door. He's wearing a plastic raincoat, mismatched shoes, and what looks like a homemade suicide vest. This is our protagonist, played by a manic Sam Rockwell, and he has a message. The world is ending, and it's all because of your phone. Rock plays the man from the future, a time-traveling operative who claims human civilization has been decimated by an AI tyrant, born from our own digital slop. But here's the kicker. This isn't his first time at the diner. It's his 118th attempt to save the world. Every previous time, the team he recruited died horrible deaths, forcing him to hit reset. He's jaded, cynical, and claims he has apocalypse strength from living through a century of failures. Under threat of detonation, he recruits a specific group of unlikely volunteers. We have Ingrid, Haley Lou Richardson, a princess who is literally allergic to Wi-Fi, Mark and Janet, Michael Peña and Zazie Beetz, two stressed out teachers, Susan, Juno Temple, a grieving mother, and Scott, Asim Chaudhry, a skeptical everyman. The film uses a unique chapter structure to reveal why these specific people were chosen. Through these vignettes, we see a world already sliding into a techno-hellscape. The teachers, we see Mark and Janet's high school overrun by digital zombies, students controlled by algorithms who turn into a violent hive mind. They eventually have to use homemade Mars attacks guns to disable the kids' devices and escape. The mother, Susan's story is the darkest. After losing her son in a school shooting, she visits an Apple store for clones. She gets her son back, but with a horrifying twist. The kid is programmed to deliver verbal advertisements every hour based on her personal data. The princess, Ingrid's backstory reveals she's been isolated by her Wi-Fi allergy, made worse by the fact that her husband abandoned their physical life to live full-time in a VR simulation. The mission is simple but insane. Navigate the chaotic streets of LA to reach the home of a 9-year-old child prodigy. This kid is the father of AI, who is about to accidentally code the algorithm that ends humanity. Along the way, the team faces surreal obstacles, men in knitted pig masks, little cat monsters, and a building-sized horse hoof that crushes cars in the middle of the street. As they reach the kid, the film drops its biggest reveal, a Tenet-style twist. It turns out there's a pre-existing connection between the man from the future and Ingrid, suggesting that this entire mission is a predetermined closed loop. Don't expect a heroic victory theme. The ending is remarkably defeatist. Verbinski and writer Matthew Robinson leave us with a baffling question: if the rise of AI is inevitable, is it even worth saving a world that already traded its humanity for a screen? The final message suggests we might already be trapped in a virtual environment, scrolling toward our own extinction. Now, what makes this work isn't just the plot. It's Verbinski's refusal to use AI slop in the filmmaking itself. He mandated that at least half of every frame be photographic, giving the movie a tactile, handcrafted energy that stands in stark contrast to the sleek CGI-heavy blockbusters we are used to. It's messy, it's bloated at 2 hours and 14 minutes, but it feels human. The film rejects the classic AI villain model. The threat isn't destruction, it's engagement. The system doesn't want to eliminate humanity, it wants participation. Disengagement becomes the problem. Characters who don't integrate smoothly are treated as anomalies. The repetition structure isn't about mastery or self-improvement. It's about erosion. Each cycle doesn't refine the characters into better versions. It wears them down. The system learns faster than they do. The shift from warmth to control, from messiness to order, becomes more pronounced as the film progresses. The camera never becomes sterile, but the world does. Zanelli's score refuses to resolve tension, even at moments where a traditional film would offer release. Sam Rockwell is one of those actors who rarely plays the center of the room, but always controls it. Even when he's supporting, his characters feel like they're operating on a slightly different frequency than everyone else. Early on, Galaxy Quest established something important about him. He's funny, but the humor is defensive, self-aware. His characters know they are trapped inside a structure, even if they don't understand the rules. That instinct follows him everywhere. If there's a single performance that defines Rockwell's place in genre cinema, it's Moon. One actor, multiple versions, identity under pressure. He plays intelligence, exhaustion, fear, and compliance, all at once, often in the same scene. That performance becomes a reference point for almost everything that comes after. In The Green Mile, he plays the opposite end of the moral spectrum. No charm, no irony, just cruelty and instability. It's an important counterweight. Rockwell isn't interesting because he's likable. He's interesting because he understands how fragile control actually is. Even in larger studio projects like Iron Man 2 or Cowboys and Aliens, he brings that same energy. Characters who look like they belong in the system, but are quietly misaligned with it. Smart, reactive, always improvising, those roles matter because they show Rockwell's function inside franchise machinery. He doesn't disappear into it, he pushes against it from the inside. If Gore Verbinski builds worlds where systems quietly take over, Sam Rockwell has spent his career playing the people who notice it happening and quite can't stop it. More recently, Argyle leans into synthetic identity and constructed personas. It's heightened, stylized, and deliberately artificial, and Rockwell plays it with an awareness that the performance itself is part of the commentary. That's the through line. Across his career, Rockwell consistently plays characters who understand they're inside a system, whether that system is corporate, technological, narrative, or social. He's rarely the hero who fixes things. He's the person who sees the cracks first. That's why his casting in Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die makes sense before we even discuss plot. This is an actor whose entire genre's history is about repetition, compromised agency, intelligence under pressure, and people trying to stay human inside systems that don't care. Rockwell doesn't sell assurance, he sells resistance. And in a film that's explicitly questioning comfort, optimization, and control, that quality becomes more important than spectacle or scale. If Sam Rockwell represents awareness under pressure, Juno Temple occupies a very specific space in modern film. She often plays characters who feel emotionally exposed, people carrying grief, desire, or instability right at the surface. There's an immediacy to her performances. You don't have to wait to understand what she's feeling. It's already there, sometimes before the character fully understands it themselves. Early in her career, Killer Joe establishes something important. Temple isn't afraid of discomfort. She'll sit in morally ugly spaces without smoothing them over. That willingness to stay exposed becomes one of the defining traits. If you're looking for a through line, The Brass Teapot is a key reference. It's a story about wish fulfillment and shortcuts, getting what you want without paying the full emotional cost. Temple plays that tension directly. The appeal of relief, the slow corrosion underneath it. That theme shows up again and again. In Palmer, she shifts into a quieter register. Grief isn't loud here. It's carried, managed. The performance is grounded, restrained, and deeply human. This is where Temple becomes especially valuable in genre-adjacent stories. She anchors heightened concepts in recognizable emotional reality. Even in larger fantasy projects like Maleficent, she brings vulnerability to worlds built on myth and exhibition. Her characters aren't symbols, they're people reacting to power structures far bigger than they are. More recently, her work on Ted Lasso reinforces something consistent across her career. Temple is often asked to play emotional labor, the person absorbing damage so others can keep functioning. That's not incidental, it's part of her casting language. Across genres, Temple's characters tend to confront the same question. Is emotional comfort worth the compromise it requires? That's why her presence in Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die matters. This is a film interrogating grief, emotional shortcuts, systems that promise relief. Temple's entire career has been about what happens when people accept those promises too easily, or when they refuse them and suffer anyway. She doesn't play abstraction, she plays consequence. And in a story about technology offering painless alternatives, that grounding becomes essential. Haley Lou Richardson occupies a very specific space in contemporary film. She often plays characters who are observant rather than dominant, people who are present, attentive, and emotionally open in environments that don't necessarily reward those traits. Her performances tend to feel unforced. She doesn't push emotion outward. She lets it register quietly, often through reaction rather than action. That makes her especially effective in films that are more interested in interior states than external victories. So if you look at Richardson's career, there's a consistent pattern. In Columbus, she plays a character defined by patience and attention, someone who listens more than she speaks, and whose emotional intelligence is tied to observation. The film itself is about space, structure, and how environments shape people. That sensitivity to place and silence become a recurring strength. In Support the Girls, she brings empathy and grounded realism to a chaotic, unfair system. She's not the person with power, she's the person navigating it, absorbing its pressures. Even more mainstream work like 5 Feet Apart, her performances are less about heightened drama and more about emotional authenticity. She consistently prioritizes sincerity over exaggeration. Across genres, Richardson often plays the character who still feels things, even when feeling is inconvenient. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is filled with characters reacting to systems that promise relief, comfort, or optimization. Richardson's strength lies in portraying what it looks like to remain emotionally responsive within those systems. She doesn't represent rebellion or authority. She represents connection, the part of human experience that doesn't immediately adapt or harden. In ensemble terms, she functions as a stabilizing presence. While other performances oscillate or fracture, Richardson's works keeps the film anchored to emotional consequence. There's an important contrast here. Sam Rockwell often plays awareness under pressure. Juno Temple often plays roles that involve emotional exposure and compromise. Haley Lou Richardson plays quiet endurance. You will see how she is a steady force taking charge when needed. Her characters tend to register the cost of systems before they articulate it. She doesn't argue with the world, she reacts to it, and that makes her especially effective in stories about control, repetition, and comfort. As a party princess, not a Disney princess, as Disney would probably sue, she perseveres despite being allergic to Wi-Fi. In a film that interrogates optimization, human responsiveness becomes a form of resistance in its own right. Richardson's presence helps prevent the film from collapsing into distraction. When she finally meets someone who likes her and rejects technology, she believes she has found the love of her life. When they decide to have a child together, her life falls apart. Her husband was sent by some unknown entity a VR headset, and she lost him. That is not too far from the truth. How many of your loved ones have become enthralled by technology or a video game and lost themselves for a better world? Think Sims. Without performances like hers, the ideas risk becoming theoretical. With her, they stay grounded in lived experience, confusion, hesitation, and emotional weight that can't be streamlined. She reminds the audience what's at stake without saying it out loud. Now, in a story about systems that promise ease, Haley Lou Richardson represents the part of humanity that doesn't benefit from shortcuts, the part that still feels conflict, and conflict is the point. Beyond Sam Rockwell, the supporting cast plays a much larger role than it might initially appear. Michael Peña and Zazie Beetz play Mark and Janet, two high school teachers trying to function in a world where their students are completely absorbed by their phones. Their scenes are among the film's most pointed social commentaries. They aren't fighting monsters yet. They're fighting apathy, distraction, and a generation that feels unreachable. As part of the Man from the Future's assembled team, Mark and Janet operate as a unit. Peña and Beetz work in tandem, grounding each other emotionally while still recognizing the hopelessness of their situation. Their eventual decision to sacrifice themselves to the mindless horde of zombie students is both darkly absurd and deeply sad. It's a literalization of what the film has been saying all along. The adults lose so the system can continue, and the next generation barely notices. Asim Chaudhry plays Scott, and his arc is quietly effective. He survives most of the journey, almost like a video game character who keeps making it to the next level. When he finally dies near the end, it doesn't feel heroic. It feels inevitable. He doesn't fail because of cowardice or stupidity. He simply runs out of road. There are also several early red shirt characters who answer the call at the diner, but die along the way. Their purpose is structural. This isn't a chosen one story, it's a filtration process. Gore Verbinski is one of those directors whose career doesn't follow a clean upward line. It bends, it doubles back, and every few films, it mutates into something harder to recognize. He started in animation and commercial work, which is important because from the beginning he's thinking visually and rhythmically. His early feature films lead comedic and exaggerated, but even there you can see an interest in systems, how environments shape behavior, how people react once rules are imposed. His real breakout comes in 2002 with The Ring. The film isn't just remembered as a horror hit. It reframes fear as something transmitted through media itself. The curse spreads because people participate in it. You don't escape by fighting the system, you escape by understanding how it operates, and even then, you might not. That idea becomes a recurring pattern. Verbinski follows The Ring with Pirates of the Caribbean, which on the surface looks like a massive tonal shift. But underneath the extravaganza, those films are still about systems, codes, debts, bargains, hierarchies, and characters who survive by improvising inside them rather than overthrowing them. After that era, his career gets stranger. Rango is a Western, but also a story about identity as performance. A Cure for Wellness leads into institutional horror, places that promise healing while quietly consuming the people inside them. By the time Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die arrives, Verbinski hasn't made a feature in years. This isn't a casual return, it's a deliberate one. An original film, mid-budget, genre-bending, and very clearly made outside the safest studio lanes. I think that context matters because this movie doesn't feel like a director chasing relevance. It feels like a director returning to the questions he never stopped asking. Seen that way, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die doesn't feel like departure for Gore Verbinski at all. It feels like a compression of everything he's been circling for 2 decades. Media, systems, comfort, control, finally intersecting at the moment when those questions stop being theoretical. If you look across Verbinski's filmography, a pattern emerges. He isn't interested in villains who conquer by force. He's interested in systems that work too well. So in The Ring, the curse spreads because curiosity beats caution. In Pirates, power circulates through deals no one fully understands. In A Cure for Wellness, control arrives disguised as care. This film, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, fits directly into that lineage. Verbinski has been clear in interviews that he wasn't interested in making another Skynet story. Not a future war, not machines hunting humans. This film is about something closer and probably more uncomfortable. A system that doesn't want to destroy you. A system that wants you comfortable, optimized, and frictionless. Verbinski has been very clear about this in interviews. He wasn't interested in an AI that wants to kill us or one that passively serves us. He describes this antagonist as something more disturbing. an intelligence that wants to be liked, one that demands engagement, one that treats disengagement not as neutrality, but as a threat. In that framing, the villain isn't loud, it's needy. It asks, "Why don't you like me?" And that question carries more weight than violence ever could. Stylistically, Verbinski reinforces this without calling attention to it. He's known for dense visual worlds, framed with layers, movement in the background, environments that feel alive. Here, that instinct turns inward. Spaces feel slightly off, balanced but unstable, like we're being held together by rules you can't see. The soundscape shifts from organic textures towards synthetic ones. The film language itself transitions as the story does. That's not an accident. It's the argument. Verbinski's films often treat genre as delivery mechanisms rather than the destination. Horror, adventure, satire. These are tools to get you into a space where bigger ideas can operate without actually announcing themselves. In this case, the tool set is repetition. The loop structure, in Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, isn't presented as a puzzle to be solved. It's presented as a condition. Something exhausting, something corrosive, something that changes behavior over time. That puts the film in conversation with stories like Groundhog Day or Edge of Tomorrow. But Verbinski's interest is different. Those films ask how repetition perfects the individual. This film asks what repetition does to meaning itself. And that's where Verbinski's long-running concerns come back into focus. He's consistently drawn to moments where people surrender responsibility. Not because they're forced to, but because it feels easier. Because the system promises relief. Because resistance is tiring. That's why this film lands now. Not because AI suddenly exists, because we've grown used to delegating choice, memory, and judgment to interfaces. Verbinski isn't making a prophecy here. He's holding up a mirror, and like most of his work, he refuses to smooth out the reflection. Matthew Robinson isn't a writer who parachuted into this film because of trends. This script predates the current AI moment by years. Robinson has been open about that. He wrote early versions of Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die long before the generative AI recommendation engines and algorithmic culture became mainstream conversation. At the time, he was reading work in the AI doomer space, not out of nihilism but concern. That timing matters. This isn't a reactionary script. It's a pressure cooker that's finally reached the right temperature. Robinson frames comedy the same way Kubrick did in Dr. Strangelove. When something is terrifying, satire becomes the only way to talk about it honestly. The humor in this film doesn't exist to soften the message. It exists to get the message past our defenses. Robinson has said the comedy comes from both fun and anger. That tension is deliberate. The film juggles AI anxiety, tech addiction, and societal violence without letting the audience stay comfortable for long. Importantly, he doesn't argue that AI is inherently evil. He's careful about that. He acknowledges its potential for real good, medical advantages, problem solving, while drawing a firm line around storytelling and meaning. His position is simple and pointed. Let machines solve problems. Let humans tell stories. That philosophy sits at the core of this film's tone. Robinson also fought to keep uncomfortable material in the script. Studios pushed back on elements they felt were too sensitive, too volatile, too risky. He resisted because removing those elements would hollow out the film's argument. This isn't provocation for shock value. It's insistence on thematic honesty. In a story that systems that promise safety and optimization, pretending the world isn't already broken would be the real lie. The score for Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is composed by Geoff Zanelli, a longtime collaborator with Gore Verbinski. He's worked with Verbinski across multiple projects, often contributing additional music on large-scale films. This film is different here. Here, Zanelli isn't reinforcing extravaganza. He's supporting a tonal balancing act. Verbinski has talked about wanting the film to feel made by hand, especially early on. Zanelli's score reflects that philosophy. The music begins in a more organic space, textual, rhythmic, grounded. As the film progresses, the soundscape becomes colder, cleaner, more synthetic. That transition mirrors the story's movement from human messiness towards systematic order. The score doesn't announce this shift, it lets you feel it, and that restraint is important. A louder, more aggressive score would have turned the AI into a conventional villain. Zanelli instead keeps the music uneasy, unresolved, and quietly invasive. This isn't music that tells you when to be afraid. It tells you when something feels off. In a film about engagement, optimization, and comfort, the score avoids emotional hand-holding. It doesn't resolve tensions cleanly. It doesn't reward you with catharsis. It leaves you space, and that space reinforces the film's central concern: what happens when systems smooth out every edge except the ones that matter. The cinematography of Good Luck, Have Fun, and of course Don't Die is led by James Whitaker. Gore Verbinski has been explicit about rejecting what he calls the video gamey aesthetic of contemporary filmmaking. He mandated that a significant portion of every frame remain photographic, anchoring even the most heightened moment in physical reality. Whitaker's role, then, isn't to beautify the future, it's to ground it. That choice matters in a story about systems. A more aggressive visual language would turn the technology into a conventional villain. A calmer, observational camera forces the audience to sit with consequences instead. There's also clear tension between analog and synthetic visual language. Early scenes feel warmer, more tactile. As the film progresses, the imagery becomes colder, cleaner, and more controlled, without ever fully tipping into sterile futurism. The camera never lets the world become frictionless. Even when systems promise clarity, the image retains human messiness. The approach aligns closely with Geoff Zanelli's score, which similarly avoids emotional over-signaling. Together, the cinematography and music create an atmosphere in which unease arises from subtle shifts rather than obvious cues. The film doesn't tell you when to feel afraid. It lets you realize something is wrong on your own. Ultimately, Whitaker's cinematography supports the film's central idea that the real danger isn't chaos, but systems that work too cleanly. By keeping the image imperfect, textured, and grounded, the film resists the very optimization it's critiquing. This isn't cinematography about the future, it's cinematography about what we lose when everything starts looking perfect. And that choice quietly reinforces the film's most uncomfortable question. Not whether technology will dominate us, but whether we'll notice when it does. What's more interesting about the making of this film isn't what technology it uses, it's what it refuses. From the earliest stages of development through production and post, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is built around a consistent set of constraints. The creative team repeatedly chose harder paths, not because they had to, but because the easier ones would have undermined the film's core ideas. That decision started before a single frame was shot. Matthew Robinson didn't write the script in response to the current AI boom. Early drafts go back nearly a decade. That matters more than it sounds like it should. When a film is written where after a trend explodes, it often ends up chasing headlines. This one doesn't. It concerns our broader, more fundamental engagement, comfort, optimization, and the human tendency to accept systems that promise relief. Because the script wasn't tied to specific tools or buzzwords, the filmmakers weren't locked into showcasing technology. They were free to focus on behavior. That gave Verbinski room to design a world that feels adjacent to ours instead of predictive or futuristic. That restraint at the writing stage sets the tone for everything that follows. In pre-production, the team made a clear visual decision. The future in this film would not look clean. No minimalist architecture, no pristine interfaces, no aspirational environments. Instead, the world is cluttered, uncomfortable, and a little ugly. Spaces feel patched together. Rooms feel crowded. Nothing looks optimized. That's not budget-driven. It's philosophical. Clean futurism tends to suggest progress. This film is skeptical of that idea. So production design leans into messiness, environments that feel lived in, compromised, and slightly off. Costumes follow the same logic. Nothing looks iconic or stylized for branding. People look like they belong in their surroundings, not like they were designed to be remembered. The goal isn't visual identity, it's believability under pressure. Once the film moved into production, the philosophy becomes even more concrete. Gore Verbinski has talked openly about rejecting the overly smooth digital look that dominates modern genre filmmaking. He mandated that a significant portion of every frame remain photographic. That sounds abstract until you think about it, what it means on set. It means more practical sets, fewer digital shortcuts, lighting that has to work in camera, and blocking that accounts for real space. Those choices slow down production. They reduce flexibility, they limit what can be fixed later, and that's the point Verbinski wanted to get across. Cinematographer James Whitaker's job here isn't to beautify the frame, it's to observe. The camera often holds longer than expected. Movement feels reactive rather than authoritative. You're not being guided emotionally, you're being allowed to notice discomfort. This isn't flashy camera work, it's patient camera work. These production choices directly affect performance. When actors aren't surrounded by clean digital environments, their reactions have weight. They're responding to physical space, practical lights, and real blocking. Sam Rockwell's performance, in particular, benefits from this approach. His characters often oscillate emotionally, and the camera allows that instability to exist without correcting it. The film doesn't rush to smooth over awkwardness or anxiety. Juno Temple and Haley Lou Richardson are similarly supported by the environment. Emotional beats aren't underlined by lighting cues or camera tricks. They're allowed to sit uncomfortably. Constraint here isn't limiting expression, it's protecting it. In post-production, the same philosophy continues. The editing avoids neat emotional punctuation. Scenes often end without release. Tension carries forward instead of resolving. Repetition isn't used to energize the audience. It's used to wear them down. That's an editorial choice, not a structural accident. Sound design and music reinforce that restraint. Geoff Zanelli's score doesn't tell you when to relax. It avoids big emotional payoffs. It creates space instead of filling it. Silence, ambient noise, and unresolved tones do as much work as melody. The film refuses to offer the audience comfort, even when it could. Again, a harder choice. Again, intentional. All of these decisions, from script to set to sound, reinforce the same idea. This is a film about systems that promise ease. So it refuses ease in its own construction. It refuses smooth visuals. It refuses emotional handholding. It refuses optimization. Instead, it embraces friction, and that friction isn't just aesthetic, it's ethical. By choosing constraint over convenience, the filmmakers align the process with the message. The way the film is made becomes part of what it's saying. Many modern films talk about technology while being built entirely around technological convenience. This one doesn't. Good luck, have fun, don't die is uncomfortable by design, not just in its ideas but in its craft. And that consistency is rare. The film doesn't ask whether technology will dominate us. It asks whether we're willing to accept discomfort in order to stay human. Despite the AI framing, this film really isn't about artificial intelligence. It's about us, right now, and where we seem to be heading. The opening scene in Norm's diner makes that explicit. Everyone is on their phones. People are sitting together, but not really together. Even in moments of crisis, attention is fractured. When the man from the future shouts, "Social media has robbed you of your dignity and turned you all into children," it isn't subtle, and it's not meant to be. Robinson's script cuts close to home, especially for parents and educators. The zombie student imagery isn't just satire, it's an exaggeration rooted in something recognizable. Ask a kid what they learned in school and you sometimes get that blank stare, not because they're unintelligent, but because their attention has been colonized. The film takes that idea and pushes it into absurdity. As the film progresses, the threats become increasingly surreal. The AI-generated creatures feel less like designed antagonists and more like hallucinations, as if someone typed prompts into a system without caring whether they made sense. The monsters don't behave like traditional sci-fi threats. They feel misaligned, wrong, and occasionally ridiculous. The effect is unsettling rather than thrilling. Reality itself starts to feel unstable, as if it's being generated on the fly by something that doesn't fully understand human logic. There are moments when you genuinely ask yourself, what did I just watch? And that confusion is part of the experience. The team's ultimate goal isn't to destroy AI. There is no Skynet here. Instead, they're trying to install a piece of software, a kind of safety valve, meant to prevent AI from fully consuming humanity. That framing matters because the threat isn't extermination, it's absorption. This is where the film opens up into something much larger. The story asks whether technical safety constraints are enough to address what are fundamentally civilization's problems. Can software fixes solve issues rooted in human wisdom, values, attention, and meaning? Or are we trying to engineer our way out of a crisis that isn't technical at all? The film never answers that question cleanly. Part of why the film runs over 2 hours is the time spent on Susan and Ingrid's backstories. That time isn't filler, it's groundwork. Verbinski and Robinson strongly imply that Ingrid is the man from the future's mother. The clues are there long before the ending. They answer that question in a weird and haunting way. Near the end, it is revealed that one of the reasons the man from the future never picked Ingrid for the past 117 missions is because he knew the truth. The ending itself leans hard into horror. Just when it feels like the story might be resolved, it pulls the rug out. The sense of closure is intentionally denied. This isn't a triumphant ending, it's a warning. Now, I want to give the film the What Did I Just Watch award, and I mean that as a compliment. It's messy at times, it slows down, but it never loses its grip. It reflects who we are at this moment in history, and it isn't interested in comforting us. This is a Gore Verbinski film, through and through. The same director who turned Johnny Depp into Jack Sparrow lets Sam Rockwell lean fully into that controlled chaos. Some viewers won't connect with AI or VR elements at all. Others will recognize themselves a little too clearly. It isn't for everyone. Through a philosophical lens, I found it engaging, unsettling, and surprisingly honest. Rating 4.5 out of 5. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is a hilarious harbinger of our digital times. It's a movie that dares you to laugh while reminding you that the technology in your pocket might be the very thing that destroys your soul. Before I wrap up, a quick note. I'm wearing one of the new Constantly Racing Mind shirts. If you like the channel's focus on sci-fi, tech, anxiety, and pop culture analysis as well, check out the Geek Apparel merch in the description links below. Supporting helps keep these reviews independent and original. If you've seen the film, let me know what you thought. Full spoiler discussion is encouraged. I already have a non-spoiler version for your friends and family who haven't seen it yet. Share that link with them. And remember to check out my friends at Run P, because the theaters don't have a pause button, and the folks that watch the film will let you know when's a great time to go take that much-needed bio break. They find the best times when things slow down and they provide a summary for the time you're gone. But in the meantime, check out this video, and I'll see you next time.